What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to a news headline that you could say kinda grabbed my attention because it says Mark Carney is constructing a mega anti Trump trade alliance. Well, I mean, if it isn't the consequences of our own actions, honestly, I would say that this sounds pretty cool, actually, but except the only thing is that this sounds really, really bad for the United States. But, just as Mark Carney was saying in his Davos speech, the world needs to stop worrying about the United States and, focus on the future. So I actually have to respect Mark Carney. This was not just a bunch of talk. And he actually seems to be following up his speech with real, actual actions here. So I really want to take a look at this here today. Even though to me, this sort of sounds like a bunch of stuff that unfortunately the United States is going to be missing out on or excluded from. But let's take a look here. It says the Canadian Prime Minister is spearheading discussions between the EU and a major Indo-Pacific trade bloc after calling on the middle powers to join forces. Wow. Yeah, I mean, Mark Carney is actually like out there doing it. Like without making it sound too outrageous, like he's out there trying to like reconstruct the new world order or whatever. It's rather impressive, and it's cool that it's like Canada leading the way on this whole thing. And again, it would be a whole lot cooler for me, specifically, if this wasn't sort of a anti-Trump and therefore sort of an anti-American kind of thing. A lot of Americans would kind of like want to make a caveat there that like, oh, anti-Trump is different from anti-America. But we did elect Donald Trump. He is the president of the United States, so it's hard to say that to separate them at this point in time. If this is anti-Trump, it's pretty much anti-US, at least in terms of trade, that's for sure, which is bad for us, let's be honest. So Mark Carney is actually like leading the discussions on this new world trade group. Again, I know I keep saying that, but it's like pretty freaking cool. Between the EU, so Europe, and the Indo-Pacific trade, that's like random countries or something. Like, not random, but like Japan and India and like Australia and New Zealand, South Korea, like stuff like powerful or what we call middle powers, which aren't like the US and China, but countries that are not small, but perhaps not gigantic. Anyway, so now we know what we're talking about. It says here, two of the world's biggest trading blocs are cautiously eyeing closer ties to short-circuit Donald Trump's tariffs. It's interesting because the United States government recently like started to have some success passing some policy decisions that might make Donald Trump's tariffs illegal, and the whole Trump tariff era might come to an end. Like, I can't even believe it. There were actually some Republican representatives who voted against tariffs and Donald Trump, and they got a majority. But it has to pass like other houses of other branches of our government to actually pass. But Who knows? Maybe the United States will cause the Trump and the tariffs, and perhaps we shall end it as well. Who knows? But anyway, it doesn't sound like Canada and the middle powers and Europe and the Indo bloc are all, you're not sitting on your hands waiting to see one way or another. And frankly, even if the tariffs were repealed, um, I wouldn't be surprised to see this all continue regardless, because it seems like, for better or for worse, probably for better for everyone else and for worse for us in the US, the rest of the world wants to lower its reliance on the United States, and this is a way of doing that. And it's really happening. It's really happening. I think a lot of Americans need to, like, if I could just like grab their head, their skull, so really feel it and be like, this is happening. This is really happening. Like, it's not good. We messed up. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of Americans who are starting to wake up and realize, like, a lot of the problems that we have, and a lot of the destruction and sort of chaos and damage that we've caused in the last year. Even Americans who voted for Donald Trump are starting to realize that. His approval rating is like, it's like lower than Joe Biden by some measurements. That's pretty. That's insane. I'm gonna say it. That's not because it's not correct, but because, my God, that must trigger Trump to no end. To know, like, Americans are really not happy with him, according to the data too. Anyway, putting that aside, the EU and the 12-nation Indo-Pacific bloc are opening talks to explore proposals to form one of the largest global economic alliances. Multiple people with knowledge of the talks have told Politico, who wrote this article. So, yeah, Mark Carney gave a speech talking about the necessity of something like this for the middle powers and trading nations to band together and work with each other and kind of not worry about the U.S. so much anymore. And that was the speech, and now it is happening. The talks are happening. It's really happening. I, I'm trying to think about why this is getting me, like, I don't know, worked up a little bit, because, yeah, that's why. Because it's not just talk. For me, it's now gone from talk and like a legendary speech from Mark Carney to actual reality. Like, the discussions are happening. Canada is spearheading discussions after Mark Carney called on middle powers to buck trade war coercion. Yeah, it's maybe you've seen his speech. I won't reiterate everything he said, but he was basically saying that the United States doesn't play by the normal rules of engagement anymore. Which is absolutely true. Like everyone else, it seems like every other country, generally speaking, is like obeying the civilized rules of a decent society. Society needs like common decency to work, and the United States is literally taking advantage of that. Everyone else playing by the rules, and we're just like threatening them, threatening you, threatening them, using tariffs as a coercion device, threatening people who want to defend Greenland, and yeah, and that's why no American should be like scratching our head like, why is everyone not like us? Why aren't we invited to the new super anti-Trump trade bloc? Why aren't we invited? No, no American should ever ask. That's that. Sadly, there are some out there. Ottawa is championing efforts to build a bridge between the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the European Union, which create a new bloc, a trading bloc of 1.5 billion people. Is this unprecedented? Because I've never heard of anything like this. If this were to happen, I mean, the United States has enjoyed such a long period in a position of such power and influence and having a reserve currency of the US dollar and people investing in us and giving us loans, and we can print money and people will still use it. And there's now going to be this group of 1.5 billion people who are basically like, no thanks, like we're good, we're okay. Well, um, and I don't know how the United States is gonna adapt to that, or certainly not good. Certainly, you can't help but use the word like the decline of the U.S., which is so incredibly sad to even have to say. Seriously. The middle powers are taking action. The EU and CPTPP are starting talks this year to strike an agreement to intertwine the supply chains of members like Canada, Singapore, Mexico, Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, Australia with Europe. Like, I know we're missing like maybe some parts of Asia or and Africa and stuff, but this is a big part of the planet that's like getting together. And it's like, hey, let's create our own supply chains and trade agreements. And meanwhile, Trump is like, I don't know if we're going to renew the Mexico Canada trade agreement. Well, Canada and Mexico aren't sitting around crying about it. You're going to join this giant new cool global trade group. It would be, man, I don't know. I can't help but think like, what on earth were we expecting to happen? What was Trump expecting to happen? This was supposed to like be his master plan to make America great again? Make us great at what? Like losing everything that we've ever strived to build and any success we've had, and be great at what? Ruining our reputation? Like what was this is such an incredible failure compared to the outrageous promises that Trump made about all this stuff. Like lots of people didn't even believe it in the first place, like that tariffs were a good idea, or but even if you thought it was a bad idea, I don't know if any American really forecasted this level of disappointment and damage to us. It's so bad. It would bring almost 40 nations from all over the globe close together with the aim of reaching a deal on so-called rules of origin. These rules determine the economic nationality of a product. A deal would allow manufacturers throughout the two trading blocs to trade goods and their parts more seamlessly in a low tariff process known as accumulation. Earlier this month, Carney dispatched his personal representative to the European Union, John Hannaford, to Singapore to solicit the views of regional leaders on the potential deal. So Carney is dispatching his representatives to the EU around the world to begin real talks about this and to get everybody's opinion and the views. And they've already got this outline of what the deal might do: a low tariff process, open trade manufacturers seamlessly. It's still kind of vague right now, but who in their right mind wouldn't want to be a part of this? I mean, I don't know all the details, but the work is definitely coming along, says the Canadian government. We've had very fruitful discussions with other partners around the world. Like others in this story, they were granted anonymity to discuss the preliminary talks. So it's like still kind of secretive right now. It's also, isn't this is kind of like what we deserve for like Trump having the audacity to tell Canada, to threaten Canada and say like, if you do any trade with China, then I'm gonna punish you. It's gonna make me very mad. And it's like, well, now Canada's doing trade with the planet and less with us. So that's I don't. It sounds like Canada is getting the last laugh there. Origin story. I think we all know how this, why we are in the situation we are in right now. business groups throughout Europe are growing louder in their support of rules of origin deal. They keep using this term, rules of origin. That seems to be like a big factor in how this whole deal is going to be designed around. Pushing Brussels and London to forge ahead, the German Chamber of Commerce, British Chamber of Commerce support the pact. Within the two blocs, these issues are being discussed, but it's not public. So this is like supposed to be some kind. This is the Politico article here is like some kind of scoop on this. Like this is not necessarily supposed to be big public information yet, and this is kind of like the first we're hearing about it. The EU had free trade deals with the majority of CPTPP members, including New Zealand, Japan, UK, Canada, but we're having the possibility of a cumulative origin between all the different countries, which could see big benefits. Okay, that's the end, huh? Well, there you have it. Not too many details, and honestly, a lot of technical trade mumbo jumbo as well, but just taking this at face value, this seems like this could be the beginning of some huge, historic news, historic trade agreement that the United States will have no part in. So it's hard for me to get too excited. If you're one of the countries involved in this, I would imagine this is pretty cool and pretty exciting. But yeah, I guess for me, I just hope that enough time can pass that maybe someday the trust can be restored in the United States and things can kind of maybe go back a little bit to how they. I don't think they will go back to how they were. That I've come to terms with. But certainly when you see an entire article literally talking about a global trade alliance, anti-Trump, anti-US, it's hard to remain too optimistic as an American about our outlook, but I can't. I guess the reason I cope is decently well is just because I understand, and I certainly cannot blame any other country for taking this course of action. That is for sure. That would be outrageous. So I get it, and it's very interesting, and I'm a little jealous. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like, or leave a comment with your thoughts on this the possibility of this huge new trade alliance with the EU and a lot of countries around the world, and that'd be cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian things that I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.